Hello, good morning, and welcome back or welcome to Morning Rae. I'm your host, Lan or Alana, and today's episode is all about breaking patterns. I feel like I've been on my journey of interrupting a lot of patterns that have happened in my life, whether it be with regard to my career, how I handle conflict, maybe my friendships, relationships, dating, love life, whatever it is. I feel like I've really been on this journey and I am finally successfully breaking quite a few habits or patterns and reoccurring cycles. And I thought maybe it would be a good time to create an episode on this and discuss this a little bit more because I feel like this is something that a lot of us struggle with, and it can be very hard to learn how to break these patterns and even know where to start, especially maybe if you're not in therapy, if you don't have access to a therapist, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So if you ever have felt like you are stuck on repeat, you have the same relationships, the same jobs, the same self-doubt, today we are really getting into the nitty-gritty with breaking habits and reoccurring cycles in your life. The sticky ones that keep showing up over and over again. Maybe it's dating the same guy with a different haircut. Maybe it's always quitting right before it gets good, or maybe it's just that quiet feeling of being stuck. So if you've ever caught yourself saying, why am I like this? And questioning things and wanting to blame yourself for the same repeat and feeling like you are stuck to these circumstances and that this will always be your story and how things will play out, well then, girl, this is for you. And if you feel like you have a friend, a sibling, a coworker, whoever it is, who you feel like you're always discussing how you both feel like you're stuck in the same cycle, the same things keep happening, the relationships keep playing out the same way, friendships keep ending the same ways, whatever it is, feel free to share this episode of Morning Rae with them. But I really do think that breaking patterns is so crucial and necessary for personal growth and fulfillment. And if you're on this journey, which I'm assuming you are if you are listening to this podcast, of wanting to work on becoming this higher, hottest, best version of you, then honey, then it's important that we acknowledge our cycles and our patterns that are not serving us, that are not benefiting us, that are not having a positive outcome effect on our life in order to continue to evolve and become this higher, better version of us. But let's start here. Patterns are truly just behaviors, thoughts, or emotions that we repeat, whether we realize it or not. A lot of the times this happens subconsciously. We get into the habit of doing things and our mind just operates, responds, and decides to do the same sort of action or choice time and time again. It just becomes second nature to us, right? And while some of these patterns are helpful, like brushing your teeth, texting back a friend when you're smiling, others are not so much, like ghosting people when you're overwhelmed, or maybe dating someone that feels familiar but isn't necessarily safe or good for you, but it feels safe because it feels familiar based off of previous expectations and relationships or environments created in a relationship that feels safe and normal to you, but maybe they're not really healthy for you. And a lot of our patterns were built when we were just trying to survive. Seriously, you might have picked up people pleasing at 9 years old because it kept the peace in your house. Or maybe you learned to avoid conflict because no one ever modeled healthy confrontation for you. These are things I want you to know. They're not failures. There's nothing wrong with you. You shouldn't look down on yourself, and you're not stuck to these beliefs, and you're not the only one that has this. Like, I definitely feel like I struggle with people pleasing and I can be a bit avoidant when it comes to conflict. I'm very much aware of that. And you can choose to change that. Like I always say, you can reframe the way in which you look at yourself in these situations that you have gotten yourself into. You can rewrite your story. You are not glued. You are not stuck to these circumstances. You have every power within you to change the way that you go about your life, the way you make decisions, the way your life unravels. You have the power to change it. You are the driver of the car of your life. You have the power to choose a different path, a different road to follow. And when it comes to understanding the cycle and being able to define what recurring patterns are, we need to look at habits. We need to look at emotional triggers, self-sabotage, relationship dynamics. Common examples of patterns that repeat that aren't necessarily positive to us are things like procrastination, toxic relationships, financial instability, and they usually persist due to the neural wiring. Essentially, you have created the habit that proves this like way of thought time and time again in your younger years. And so now it's just second nature to you, and that's okay. It's something that feels super comfortable to you. It feels familiar to you. And so then it feels comfortable. Maybe it's from unconscious beliefs that were really trained and burnt into the way that you think based off of maybe family dynamics or things that were presented to you at a young age, or maybe it's unresolved trauma that you went through and it's just there in your subconscious now. I really do think our childhood impacts us so greatly, and I think that's why so many parents are scared of being bad parents or causing the same trauma that their parents cause on them. But unfortunately or fortunately, our childhoods do really impact how we act as people and the behaviors that we learn and what we pick up and how we go about lives. But like I said, it is totally possible to reframe, change, reconstruct these patterns, relearn or learn new behaviors and react differently and change the way in which things play out. And I feel like I've really experimented with this in terms of my relationship with myself and how I talk to myself a lot in my career and a lot of my personal relationships, whether it be with family, friends, or especially in dating. I feel like I have a bit of this abandonment wound from when I was a child. I was alone a lot. My parents worked a lot. My sister is a lot older than me. So I feel like there's a bit of like this abandonment wound. And then that also led me to then self-sabotage and whatnot. We don't need to get too much into that. But I think that impacted the way that I went about in friendships and in dating, especially with men. It led me to pick, oh my God, I can't speak. It led me to pick a lot of emotionally unavailable partners. And I've come to realize that even though I have an anxious attachment style, the reason why, and I always say this, like your relationships, whether they're platonic or romantic, are often a mere reflection of your relationship with yourself. The things you are willing to put up with in relationships is because you don't have the respect for yourself or the ability to set boundaries, or you don't believe you are worthy of more, typically speaking. Obviously, always exceptions to the rules, but relationships are a mere reflection of our relationship with ourselves. And so in me choosing emotionally unavailable partners, I myself was emotionally unavailable. Makes a lot of sense, right? But basically, how do you recognize you're in a loop? How do you actually know you're in a pattern? Common patterns for women like us in our 20s are things like people pleasing, overcommitting, or a burnout cycle, attracting the same type of emotionally unavailable partners, imposter syndrome at work or school. Start by asking yourself, why do I always feel this way after XYZ? Why do I always attract emotionally unavailable people? Why am I always overcommitting or burning out? Those are patterns. They're not just coincidences. Loops also tend to show up in things like dating, walking red flags, friendships. You're always giving, they're always taking. Work or school, you are always saying yes, even though your soul, you are saying no. One way to recognize a pattern is to notice your repeat feelings. If something always leaves you feeling drained, anxious, or doubting yourself, there is a pattern happening there. And I want to say this early in the episode. It isn't about blaming yourself. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about becoming conscious, and awareness is power. So let's talk roots. Patterns truly aren't random. They're built over time. Sometimes even from when we're kids, like I mentioned at the beginning. Maybe you learned to put everyone's needs before your own because that's what got you love or praise. Maybe you hustle hard because deep down you think your worth is tied to productivity. Maybe conflict freaks you out because growing up yelling meant danger. It meant consequences. It made you feel unsafe. You didn't like it. And it is okay to be honest with yourself about where things started. That is truly not a weakness. And It's vulnerable, it's scary, but that's healing. And society is also an impact. Society gives us a whole lot of shoulds and things that we should be doing and how we should be acting and where we should be and how we should show up, how you should be pretty but not too loud, you should be smart but not intimidating, you should have it all figured out by 25. It's so not true. It is so not true. So take some time to journal, to detect your patterns. Maybe speak with trusted friends, family, a therapist, a life coach, whatever it is, to kind of just maybe discuss things. I love discussing this with a few of my friends. I have some friends that I'll get into these deep conversations and we kind of just like reflect and sit on things. But it's always a good way to like talk things out and kind of find like the deeper root cause of things. But if you feel like you are constantly having the same or similar situations happen and you are feeling drained, anxious, shitty, down afterwards, like for example, choosing to go home with guys from the bar or not knowing when to say no or feeling like you have to sleep with them because you started hooking up, like you are allowed to say no. If you don't like how you're feeling after those situations, you can change it. Nothing, like you are allowed to say no. You are allowed to change that feeling. And that was something like I personally went through. I felt like I would just like give myself up in like fear of what the outcome of saying no would be. And I've learned that I shouldn't really care. Like the right person will respect that decision. And I don't have to be a yes man. I can set that boundary. Like I have to respect and love myself first. And just because someone wants access to me in whatever capacity it is, it doesn't mean that they get it. It doesn't mean it. So how do we break the pattern? You've spotted the pattern. Now what? Here's the truth. These patterns are not going to break overnight. You're not going to decide one day and you're going to counteract it at one time and that's it. You're done. You're fixed. It doesn't work like that. But they do break with intention. So start by pausing and noticing. Catch yourself in the moment. Oh, for example, I'm about to say something. I'm about to say yes to something I don't actually have energy for again. That pause before you decide to just like automatically say yes, be yes man, that's your moment of power. That is you choosing to disrupt this automatic pattern, that behavior that you have developed as a habit, and you're deciding to potentially change the outcome by how you move next. So then number 2, reframe the story. Instead of saying or thinking, if I say no, they'll be mad, reframe it in your mindset as, if I say no, I'm respecting my energy. I'm giving the power back to myself. Step 3, try something different. So you've taken a moment to pause and realize what's going on and realize how you are actually feeling and what you actually want to say. You reframed what will happen if you go against what you feel is what you should be doing. But now it's time to try something different. We're going to choose to act differently. We're not going to say yes in this situation. Start small, speak up, walk away. Learn how to rest without feeling guilty. Try this even once. Every small choice rewires your brain a little bit more. It's the small incremental changes that add up over time. They have that compounding effect. And lastly, be kind to yourself. You will slip. You'll fall into old habits. That is okay. Beating yourself up is a waste of energy. It's just another old pattern. Choose to give yourself grace instead of being so mean to yourself. It is not worth it. It is not worth the energy. So when breaking the cycle, practical steps include awareness, so journaling, therapy, mindful reflection, pausing and reframe. So when the trigger comes up, how to consciously respond, choosing to take a moment to pause instead of just like instantly jumping back into that old response, maybe taking a moment here to acknowledge, to realize, to maybe decide that you're going to change the way in which you respond and reframing the way in which you view yourself responding differently. Building new habits, so small intentional shifts, those little shifts add up and compound over time. And practicing self-compassion, knowing that progress isn't linear. And lastly, boundaries. I think I want to do a whole episode on this, so let me know, leave a comment on Spotify, DM me, whatever it is. But learning how to say no and stand your ground, and also not having to explain yourself in doing so. You are allowed to simply say no to something, no matter what it is, whether it's someone asking you out, someone trying to come home with you, maybe it's someone offering you something at work, maybe it's social plans, whatever it is. You are allowed to say no and set that boundary without feeling this need to explain or justify. You never have to justify yourself. When you think of super confident people and people who know their worth, they have their boundaries, they simply just say no. They don't feel this need to overcompensate through explaining and going on this super long tangent. And this is something that I noticed I used to be super guilty of. And it was something that I tended to do a lot. And you know what? I learned that I don't have to explain or justify myself to anyone. There is a time and place to do that, but I don't have to do that every single time. I'm allowed to simply say, no, I'm not interested, and walk away. Simple as that. And we briefly spoke on this, but I want to remind you that in choosing to break the patterns and stop the cycle, the progress that you experience is not going to be linear. And if you think it is, think again. It is not going to be linear. Anything you are working on, it's never going to just go on this perfect, smooth trajectory upwards. You're going to go up, you might plateau, you might go down a bit, push back up. There's always going to be ups and downs, and you will likely repeat patterns even after identifying them. I can confidently say that I've been there, especially when it came to learning boundaries in dating and learning the self-respect that I have for myself and creating those new environments and those new situations and changing the way in which things play out. It's not always easy. It's really easy to just fall back into that old thinking pattern. Again, there's neural wiring that has been deeply engraved. And so then it will take time. It will take time. If you fix it once and you do it and that's it, you have never repeated that old pattern, that old habit, that old way of thinking ever again, props to you. And I feel like there's a few instances or areas where I have experienced that, but for the most part, it is normal, it is human to kind of just fall back into old ways of thinking and responding. It is truly so important to just remember the importance of resilience and continuing to show up again and again, even if you have this slip up. Don't view it as the end all be all and just fuck it. I can't break this pattern. Keep going, keep challenging yourself to pause, take a moment to reflect, acknowledge how you feel, be in tune with your gut instinct, and reframe the way in which you think about it, and then change the way in which you respond. Healing isn't always going to be pretty. In fact, I think it's never pretty. It's really not. It's dirty, it's emotional, it's tiring, it's vulnerable, but it is powerful. And there's power in healing, and what lies on the other side of this discomfort, because it is uncomfortable, you're stepping into new unknown territory. It's different than what you're used to. It's going to feel wrong. But on the other side of that discomfort is growth. And I say this so much, it's so cheesy, but truly, truly, leaning into the discomfort and finding comfortability within that discomfort is how you become the better, best version of you, that highest version of you. So, new pattern creation. How do you consciously build new empowering patterns? How are we going to create patterns that support this higher version of ourselves and represent how this higher version of ourselves shows up? Focus on vision setting, creating structure, and surrounding yourself with support. Our brains love patterns. So if you want to stop doing something, give your brain a new option. So instead of saying, I won't check my phone in bed, instead say, I'll read 2 pages of my book. Instead of saying, I won't chase, try and I'll focus on how I feel when I choose myself. New patterns equals new muscle memory. Reframe, instead of breaking patterns, you think of choosing new ones. So examples of small but effective changes are a 5-minute routine, conscious communication. So if you tend to say yes when you mean to say no, practice saying, let me get back to you. If you tend to doom scroll when you're anxious, try 1 minute of deep breathing, a meditation, or movement instead. Ask yourself, what is one thing I can do differently today? And most importantly, anchor it to your why. I say this all the time. You need to have a deeper reason as to why you're doing things. So your surface level changes won't stick unless they're connected to a deeper reason. So ask yourself, why do I want to stop people pleasing? Well, because I want to feel peace, not pressure. Why am I building better habits? Because I'm building a life that feels good from the inside out. Say it out loud, write it down, anchor your new pattern to the person you're becoming. And lastly, with this, practice with grace. I'm going to repeat this a million times over. I'm saying this again because I think it's so important and I think you need to hear this. But patterns take time to rewire. You are human. You might slip back. It does not mean that you have failed. And I do not want you to give up if you fall back into old ways of thinking, old ways of acting, old ways of responding. Celebrate every single time you choose differently, even if it's just once a week. Again, progress is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about the amount of times you show up and choose to act differently and choose to reframe, and the desire and the want to actively become this better version of you and to choose differently, and this deeper urge and want and longing to break the fucking patterns. I want you as your big sis challenge of the week. I know we didn't do this last week, so I'm bringing it back. I do really like this little segment that we're doing, but identify one pattern you want to enter. Oh my God, I can't speak. For this week, for your big sis challenge, I want you to identify one pattern you want to interrupt and take one action to shift it. I'd love if after, in a week's time, or maybe you DM it to me now, but I really do think you should work on it before you tell someone. Like, choose to just keep it to yourself, do it, challenge yourself to do that, because a lot of the times we feel like we've accomplished something by telling someone. So I want you to identify one pattern you want to interrupt and take one action to shift it. And then in a week's time, I'd love to hear from you over Instagram DMs. Maybe leave a comment on Spotify and let me know what that pattern is, how you decided to interrupt it, and how you were feeling starting this journey. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's becoming and remembering who you've been under all of these layers. The person you are becoming, they already exist within you. Every new pattern is just another piece to that puzzle. And with that said, this is the end of our episode of the Pattern Interrupt, breaking the cycles, breaking the patterns. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, make sure to leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. That's how you can help support the pod. I love seeing when you tag that you're listening to the pod on stories or in your Instagram Reels and TikToks. It really means a lot to me. And thank you to anyone who came to Hot Girl Sweat. And thank you to anyone who came to Hot Girl Sweat this past weekend. It was such an honor to have you there. It was so much fun raising money for CAMH, and I'm excited for this week doing the Sunrise Challenge with CAMH, raising money for mental health and addiction programs. And you guys, I'm starting to teach at Carrie's. I should have done a life update at the beginning of the episode, but I didn't, so I'm doing it now. But I start at Carrie's in Yorkville tomorrow for my first 2 classes there. When you're listening to this, or I don't know if I'll have time to edit this because I have to be up really, really early. So this episode might be up later on Monday. I think I might end up having to do that. I am looking for an editor. On that note, I'm looking for someone to help with editing the video and audio for the podcast. So if you feel this is something you know how to do, feel free to email hello@byray.ca. And anyways, I have a new exciting endeavor working at Carrie's. So now I'm teaching at 2 Pilates studios, which is super exciting. And I'll be teaching at Carrie's Monday mornings and Friday mornings for now. And then I teach at LSDR Tuesday evenings, Thursday mornings. So if you live in Toronto, if you're visiting Toronto, I would love to have you in one of my classes. And yeah, I have a lot of exciting workout events on the horizon in collaboration with other groups and brands in the city, which is super exciting. And so stay tuned for that. Make sure you're following me on social media at Alana Bloomberg or at Morning Rae Podcast. I'm definitely more active on my socials, like my main one at Alana Bloomberg. But thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week. I will do my best to get these episodes back live on time. Again, life has just been so busy, and I'm in the process of adjusting to my new teaching schedule and finding balance between teaching and content creation and all of that. So please just give me some grace, and I appreciate all your love and support during this time of me figuring all of this shit out. But I love you guys so much, and your support never goes unnoticed. I hope you have an incredible day, and remember that you have the power to reframe your life and rewrite your story. I love you. See you next week.